be a governor candidate. His name is Sean Fife. We're given up to 10 minutes to speak. What we choose to do in the time, we choose to do. If we're done, we can just carry something off. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity tonight, guys.
So I'm new to the Belknap County. I moved into Bloomington just last year. Can you hear me? How about that? So I'm Sean Fife, and I'm new to the Belknap County. I actually moved out of Merrimack County because the flagrant abuse of the justice system, the way the GOP doesn't stand up for its people. I had to literally sell my property and move in and let me register to vote, where I owned property and lived on it as my primary domicile in Chichester, New Hampshire. I owned the entire railroad track in the entire town, and they said that I had no access. So that kind of set me down a road where I'd already been beat up in different ways in life, and I thought, well, this is just one I can't accept. And so really the tip of my spear is secure election. And I thought about all the different things that I could say tonight, but it seems like there's interest in what exactly I'm talking about here amongst everybody that I've been speaking to tonight. And so I would like to endorse Lynn Torkin, I spoke to, for the reason I'm about to read. House Bill 154. By holding a public hearing on Halloween, October 31st, the Senate passed legislation sponsored by Juliet Harvey Bolia, who is here. And she is a Belknap County Ward 3 legislator who is also employed by Democracy Live and digital voting industry. And for that reason, that's why I endorse Lynn, because he's not. The New Hampshire Senate then approved House Bill 154, which started as a public health and ordinance bill, and has turned into an unconstitutional election bill due to its effective back date of February, which violates the 1984 New Hampshire Supreme Court case Norton versus Patton. They also violated their own rules found in the Mason's Manual for multiple reasons. First of all, the Constitution should invalidate the retroactive feature in Chapter 2, Section 7, Paragraph 1. Second, in the Section 112, because of Dan Richard versus Sununu et al., the current case, which, if you're interested, you could go to 5 Court Street on Friday at 10:30 in the morning and hear him speak about exactly this. But it's actually a court case that's against Chuck Morse. And the current case regarding this exact voting machine issue in the New Hampshire Supreme Court, the House nor the Senate are to legislate, debate, or discuss a matter awaiting adjudication before a judicial tribunal. The New Hampshire Senate approved the House Bill 154 December 23rd. House Bill 154 passed the House as of March 9. Now Sununu may sign into effect this, well, when I wrote this, he hadn't signed it yet. So he signed into effect Bill 154, which I view as an act of treason, honestly. House Bill 154 gives the power of the government as it removes literature trial basis. We were supposed to try it for 4 years. And they removed this from the 2019 SRA 654.4 without our citizen vote, which we were originally told we would get, even though this is unconstitutional. I'm Sean Fife, and I'm running for governor as a Republican in New Hampshire, 2024, so that we can fight corruption. One of my primary goals is to fix our elections so that they're legal and trusted by our citizens. I have many other things on my agenda, but this is right at the top. There should be no electronic voting machines used in public elections unless they are verified with a hand-count paper ballot. It is unconstitutional, and that is the end of it for me. And so for that reason, I'm here, and I figured while I'm on this trip, I might as well try to get cheaper energy, actually energy produced at home. I would like people to use alternative energies. I always say solar, but it's just because everybody knows it, but there's so many options. We got to get power produced at home, so when the power lines go down, we still have power where we need it, and then we'll sell it on the lines, and those people will keep their jobs with the residual power that we produce from home. But it's a safety issue, and we have the most expensive electricity in the entire country. So you got to do something, and I feel like if it's got to be expensive, you might as well buy something that makes it secure and safe. To move on past that, cloud seeding, completely against weather modification, folks. We got to end this. They're poisoning us. I don't know who knows what, but you cannot be dumping this stuff in our skies. And so we have to do something about it. When legislation is created in this state, it gets voted down for whatever reason. And we need somebody that's going to be in the office and just push this through an executive order for that's what it comes down to. But we can't have them blasting us with radiation with HARP, trying to modify weather. It's not like we have hurricanes up here all the time. They're just messing with us, and we can't put up with it. Ammunition. We don't have a lead smelting plant in America. I want to open up the lead mines here that already are in New Hampshire. And I want to smelt underground in a very safe way. That way we don't contaminate our environment and get shut down by the EPA, but at least we don't have to any longer rely on other countries for our lead ammunition. And I believe that would be a great export for the rest of our country, to not have to rely on other countries for our safety, our Second Amendment. There are many things I don't know about politics because I have never been a politician. I've avoided politics generally, and I've been forced into this to get my messages out. But one that I hold dear is my children. When you've got the courts tearing families apart, my children literally have a court order where they're not allowed to be in this state. That's a violation of their constitutional right to liberty. You should be allowed to go to any state you want, especially the one your father lives in and is running for governor at. But here we are. So we have the state is stealing children from their families and profiting $1 million for every one they take. And I don't want to go down that road too far because I feel like Frank Staples is the guy to speak to you about what happens when you go down that street. So I'm going to save that item for him if he cares to touch on it. But holding a family unit together is a priority. We got to stop tearing our families apart. And for that reason, I do support legalizing marijuana because these are parents and children and co-workers and just active members in society going to jail and costing us a lot of money when every state around us has it. And it's too tempting for people to cross state lines and create the crime where if you had it legal at home, it would free up law enforcement assets and personnel, plus it'd free up courts, and you'd be able to process more important things than just holding people accountable for having marijuana. And so that would lighten the expense in the judicial, in the security department sector of the state, and that money could instead be spent towards personnel and cruisers instead of court, instead of filling up a jail, which ruins lives and families. That's my point. So, without too much more further ado here, you get the idea. I want to do pretty dramatic things, and so normally I would say Max Abramson or Haley, right? She's right here. Holly. I would endorse either one of them for the fact that because I'm trying to deal with the imports and exports of these metals, not just lead, but all of them. She knows that, and I need that if I'm elected. And so that's why I'm behind her, not because we don't have other good candidates in her area, but she's on top of what I'm looking to chase. And I'm only allowed 10 minutes. I didn't really time myself here, but it feels like time is up. It's getting awful quiet, and I hope somebody else can speak as well or better than I do. It's a great, the GOP is great this year. And I really like everybody that's running, for some reason at least, but I wouldn't be running myself if I didn't see something I could do better.
Thank you, Sean. Next up, we have another governor candidate, Mr. Frank Staples.
Thank you. So far, the only thing people say about me is that I don't have the name recognition. Well, I assume that all changed the other night when Miss Ayotte mentioned me by name while she was debating Chuck Norris at a GOP primary debate. I was not allowed in. I was actually outside with Sean Fife, trying to get in, spoke to Chris Egger. We have it all on video. We were excluded from this debate, and we've been excluded from the polls. Sean Fife has actually made it into some of the polls, but the one poll that I saw he made it into, I was the only of 6 Republican candidates that was left off that poll. I would highly advise people who want to know my policies to go to franknstaples.org and follow me on social media, X and Facebook. I'll run through some bullet points here about what my platform is. And the first thing I'll say is my entire platform is based off the New Hampshire Constitution. The only things I find relevant from the United States Constitution is the 9th and 10th Amendments. Okay? So, the number one thing we need to do is reclaim New Hampshire state sovereignty under Article 7 of the New Hampshire Constitution. There's been federal mandates and federal overreach that run throughout all the state. I don't think we have to get into that too much, but education standards, healthcare mandates, and environmental regulations that don't align with New Hampshire's values. Another thing is New Hampshire RSA 123.1 is what governs jurisdiction of the federal government and the cession of land to the federal government and tax exemption and jurisdiction given to the federal government by the state of New Hampshire. This law has been on the books since 1883. I went to the State House and had David Scanlon, Secretary of State, search the archives for any compliance of the federal government with RSA 123.1. There's been none since its inception. What that means is New Hampshire retains exclusive jurisdiction over the territory of New Hampshire. I have a number of official statements on my website that delve deeper into this. There's only one New Hampshire Supreme Court case that touches on New Hampshire RSA 123.1 and the lack of jurisdiction by the federal government, and that New Hampshire Supreme Court Justice did agree that it is New Hampshire territory and the federal government does not have jurisdiction. That case is Newington, the town of Newington versus Campanella Carty Construction from 1961. So I have an entire plan to reclaim our state sovereignty. Another thing, number 2, is economic independence and prosperity. I propose something called the Granite Bucks. It is a metals-backed state note currency that is redeemable by New Hampshire citizens for 0% on the spot, whatever the price is of that metal. So Granite Bucks would be backed by gold, silver, rhodium, platinum, and we would have nuclear notes. The nuclear notes would not be redeemable by the general public, of course. There's a 0% redemption, as I said, on New Hampshire residents, but there's a 5% tax on non-residents who wish to redeem for the physical metals of gold and silver, right? So it would also be available in digital form. And in the meantime, I don't know if anyone knows what gold backs are, but we could use gold backs as a stopgap method of using actual gold as currency. It's readily available, and contact me after if you want more about that. The war tax, exactly. So another thing is the war tax. So the war tax on defense contractors in New Hampshire. There's over 1,800 defense contractors in New Hampshire, and they make billions and billions of dollars. Where do they get that money? Your taxes. Okay? The $60 billion we sent to Ukraine, all the money we send to Israel, comes from your taxes. They inflate the money supply to allow these foreign countries to buy bombs, drones, etc. from New Hampshire companies. Like I said, over 1,800. So I've done the math, and over the next 10 years, we could get just under $10 billion in revenue with a 10% tax on these government contractors. That $10 billion would be used to lower all of the existing taxes: property tax, business enterprise tax, business profits tax, all of that. Okay? So, a third of that, basically $1 billion a year, would go to the state coffers. The other 2/3 would go towards reducing all of the existing state taxes. So think about that, okay? We do need to come up with some revenue to cover the YDC abuse scandal that Kelly Ayotte is implicated in, and that she allowed these abuses to persist throughout her term as AG. There's no conspiracy theory about it. It's a fact. It's a conspiracy fact about Kelly Ayotte's record. She wants to call me out publicly, saying that I raised a conspiracy theory. She was the AG the entire time. And no governor candidate besides myself has a plan to investigate this and discover where the critical failures, the catastrophic failures in the chain of command happened. Because she claimed publicly she doesn't know, and no one underneath her knew. Somebody had to know. This abuse persisted for over 60 years, okay? And if you do the math, there's 1,400 victims on the civil suit. Multiply that by 25 million. The first case got 38. Sets a precedent. That's $35 billion a year of your taxes. Spread that out over 10 years. That's $3.5 billion a year. That's half the state budget. We are bankrupt. And you got Kelly Ayotte over there laughing like nothing's going on after she publicly calls me out and has me excluded from a debate, a GOP debate. Okay? And this is why I'm excluded from the debates. This is why the media won't cover anything that I talk about. But it's all there on my website. You can actually call me. My phone number is there. I'll answer the phone. Not some middleman, not some lobbyist from BAE or Blackstone. Me. You can talk to me directly. So, energy independence, which Sean Fife talked about. We need this for a sustainable future. Wind is out of the question. I won't get into that, but even Chuck Norris is against the wind. I do support the expansion of nuclear power and expanded hydroelectric power. New Hampshire has to provide more of its own power reliably and efficiently. These wind stations are not cost effective if you look into it and do the math. They actually, you're paying more for the electricity that's produced by a wind station. Okay? It'll destroy the fishing industry. Pay attention, folks, because I'm not going anywhere. I'll be back in 2026. And if I don't secure the primary, I am running as a write-in campaign, a candidate. So you better believe I'm not going anywhere. I will split the vote between the Democrats and the Republicans, and I will get a lot of votes from the Democrats as well. Because I worked in the recovery community in Manchester for over 5 years. I pulled myself up by the bootstraps. I worked at Manchester Mental Health on the mobile crisis response team, going out on mental health calls. Okay? So I have the experience, and I have the legal knowledge as well. I successfully sued the state of New Hampshire in federal court. Okay? I got 30 seconds. So I have plans to address the homelessness and the affordable housing and the opioid crisis as well. I hope that people come up and talk to me after, and definitely check out my website. And I want to thank Mike Bordes over here for allowing me to speak and record this as well. Thank you so much.
Next up, we have another governor candidate and a former head of the state senate, Mr. Chuck Morse.
Well, thank you. New Hampshire's the most livable state in the nation, and you should be proud of it. And it didn't happen by accident, and it didn't happen by luck. It happened because we elected conservatives, just like the people in this room. I did that as Senate President, and I promise you this, I will do it as governor. We created this pro-jobs, pro-growth, family-first economic agenda that's made us the freest state in the nation. New Hampshire is the freest state in the nation. And you know, that happens when you grow up in this state. I grew up with a dad that was a veteran, that was almost 100% deaf, and my mother and father, they didn't stay together too long. I was very young when they divorced. I tell everyone I learned how to use a vacuum and a lawnmower at too young of an age. But my mom, she made sure that we grew up with conservative values because we had no choice. Mom worked for the IRS. I know, it's a mistake, but she put food on the table. And when it came time to the holiday season, my mom would go out and pluck turkeys at the local turkey farm to make sure that myself and my sisters had gifts under the tree. But she also made sure that we were in church every Sunday. Heck, by the time I was 16, I was on the executive board of my church. And that's what she believed in. She wanted us to be better. My father couldn't support us. He couldn't help himself with his mental illness. But I was going to college and I was going to do better. I ended up at Plymouth State after working real hard to get there. President Biden didn't pay for my education. I paid for it. And when I got there, I met up with my wife, Susan. And when we went through college and we graduated, we got together and I was building a nursery. And I took on debt up to my eyebrows. I had 3 acres of land. I had employees. I certainly wasn't signing a paycheck for myself. I was signing it for them. I actually had to live on the property to grow the business. But I did grow that business. And when I became successful, and I ended up marrying Susan, the love of my life, and we had a beautiful daughter, Emma, who became very successful because of everything Susan and I learned growing up without parents. The fact is, Susan left work as soon as she could to stay home with my daughter, and I tell people, that's what school choice is all about. It's parents' choice too, it's parental rights. We all have to learn to do that. It's an important part of life. But as we did that and Susan left work and the business became successful, I went on the Boys Club Board of Directors. I went on the Nursing Home Board of Directors. And if you grow up in Salem, New Hampshire, the first thing they do is tap you on the shoulder and say, you need to go into politics. And I did that. I went into politics and started as a selectman, and as soon as I got there, they asked me to go in to be a state rep in Concord. And when I went to Concord, I was going to build I-93. I went as a rep, and I said, I'm going to get the job done. No one else had accomplished it. I permitted it, I financed it, and I got it constructed. It took 25 years. So as everyone tells you about politics, and you can flick a switch and make things happen, you can't. But we built that highway, and as I was building it, I said the New Hampshire Senate is heading in the wrong direction. In the 2000s through 2010, the state of New Hampshire was starting to tax people more. They were starting to spend money more. Remember in 2011, 2011 was the year that Bill O'Brien came in as the Speaker in the House. And when he came in as the Speaker of the House, we were faced with $800 million in deficits and 100 new taxes and fees from the Democrats in 2011. I was the Finance Chair in the Senate. We cut $800 million in spending. We eliminated every tax and fee. That's how I govern. And the job wasn't done there. We went on to make sure that we started cutting those business taxes in our state because it was so important to grow the economy. In 2021, we built the most conservative budget in the state's history. We lowered the business taxes and helped small businessmen grow their companies. And we eliminated the interest and dividends tax in our state. It's gone in 2025. And we sent $500 million back to the property taxpayers. Why? Because it was your money. We sent it back to you. We should have done it again. I believe in that. I believe we should be sending money back to the taxpayers to help them out. But what we failed on was passing parental rights. We didn't pass it, and we should have. And we didn't pass it again the following year. And we didn't pass it again the following year. As governor, I want to make sure we pass parental rights. Because as Senate President, I made sure that we passed education freedom accounts. And we need to make sure that every child in New Hampshire gets to take advantage of education freedom accounts, no matter how poor or rich they are. That's going to build a stronger school system in our state. That's where we need to head. As Senate President, we passed constitutional carry under my watch. These are the things that make a difference to your lives in New Hampshire. We're one of the freest states in the nation. Let's keep it that way. We're one of the safest states in the nation. Let's keep it that way. But what I want to do is, I want to go in as governor, and I want to make sure that we eliminate all the drugs in the state of New Hampshire and make sure that we support law enforcement. That's why I endorsed Donald Trump. I want to make sure we close the borders in this country. I want to make sure we stop the illegals from coming in. I want to make sure we stop the drugs from coming in. It isn't about Lawrence, Massachusetts. It's about this country letting the drugs come in. We need to stop it. And we need to make sure we give law enforcement the tools. We need to make sure that we pass trespassing laws that let the sheriffs go and get the people that are illegal that are on that property and send them to jail. That's what we should be doing. We need to keep our safe state. We need to keep our state safe. You didn't even laugh. In any case, there's a lot of other things we need to accomplish. You know, I built a 2015 budget with a lot of help. When we were cutting taxes, I said to the Republicans, we need to solve mental illness issues. The Democrats were the ones ignoring it. Hassan was the one being sued. It was Republicans that led on that issue. As governor, there's more to do with mental health. We need to solve the problems. We need to make sure that we don't have the suicides that we see in New Hampshire. And we also need to make sure we stop the homelessness in New Hampshire. You know, when I first started campaigning, I went out and met with churches because I said the government can't do everything in New Hampshire. We need to solve this problem together. And it starts by saying this is not acceptable in our state. It would have never been acceptable in Salem, New Hampshire when I grew up. If someone was sleeping in a parking lot, someone did something about it. They're doing it in Manchester, we can do it in the state of New Hampshire. Let's solve the problem. And last but not least, there's no one that has spent more time on state budgets than I have. And I did it because I believed in the state of New Hampshire. And I wanted to teach people what it was like to be a conservative and do it right. We did that, and we did that, and we did it. And I promise you as governor, that next budget that we do will be conservative, and it'll meet the needs of the people of New Hampshire. Thank you for coming out tonight. I'd love your vote. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have another governor candidate and former U.S. Senator Kelly Ayotte.
Okay, so what's at stake? Here's what's at stake. You see my signs. They say don't mass up New Hampshire. But it sounds funny, but this is really what's at stake, because it would take the Democrats only one election cycle to turn this great state into Massachusetts. And right now, the Democrats are spending $1 million a week on television against me. You know why they're doing that? They're doing that because they know I can beat them. And we darn well better beat them, folks, because if we do not, our great state is in jeopardy. Joyce Craig has called me the most dangerous threat that New Hampshire has ever seen. I take that as a compliment that I'm the most dangerous threat to their agenda, because their agenda is one that wants to take us in a totally different direction, one of higher taxes and less freedom for the people of New Hampshire. And that is not what we stand for, folks. Live free or die means something in this state. And I want you to know I have the fire in the belly to beat both of these women. And that money that National Democrats, just so you know, this is the top state that the Democrats think they can flip from red to blue. So let's make sure one thing. Let's make sure that we win this thing. And I mean we win it not just at the governor's race, but we win it all the way down the ticket. So I know there's a number of people here running tonight for state senate, for representative. It's critical that we have a strong majority, a much stronger majority now than we have in the House of Representatives, and we keep the strong majority in the Senate, because their agenda is one that unfortunately is dangerous. It's one of sanctuary cities where illegal immigrants are coddled. It's one where illegal immigrants will get driver's license. We see it because it's playing out in Massachusetts right now, where they spent $1 billion housing illegal immigrants. So when I'm governor, I want you to know we're going to keep this state safe, we're going to keep it prosperous, and we're going to keep it free. Having served as Attorney General of this state and as a murder prosecutor, I'm proud to have the endorsement of a number of law enforcement agencies, because I work directly with the police. And they need to know that we have their backs. Because right now, that national defund the police movement, they don't feel that way. And we have some weak laws in place, like a bail reform law that was created a revolving door. It's dangerous criminals ending up on our streets. Fentanyl dealers and violent criminals, when I'm governor, are going to face the toughest sentences in the country. Why? Because right now they're not. And when they traffic their poison over the southern border into our state, they need to know that here they're going to be held accountable. And no sanctuary cities. We need a statewide sanctuary city ban. That hasn't happened yet. It's kind of shocking in our legislature that has not happened. We also need to make sure, even though we think we don't have, there's no driver's license for illegal immigrants, like other states are giving them out. We should make sure it's not happening here with our DMV, and that should never be our law. No benefits whatsoever, because again, we'll see what played out in Massachusetts. And then when it comes to prosperity, we need to defend our tax advantage, but we need to make it even better. Our government can be even more transparent. It can be, every state approval that you seek to build anything, it's like alphabet soup agency, and we need to overhaul that process so that government is there to serve the people. And finally, it's about freedom, our constitutional rights. And by the way, they're on the ballot because both of the women who are running for governor on the Democratic end, they have already put forth plans that would impact your Second Amendment rights, would impact other constitutional rights of yours. And so as governor, the first question I'm going to have is that, does it violate the federal constitution when anything comes to my desk? Does it violate the state constitution? Your state constitution gives you greater rights.
First time we're hearing that.
And, Frank, I had the chance, you had the chance to speak, give me the chance to speak.
You have a chance to speak. I did not have a chance to speak the other night. Okay, and I'm not being disrespectful. I was excluded from the other one.
Finally, let me just say this. I'm a mother of 2 children, and I feel very strongly about putting parents in the driver's seat. And that means a parental bill of rights. So, but understand, we are not going to get that parental bill of rights passed unless we have a greater majority in the House. So that's why I'm saying vote up and down the ticket. And then there's education freedom. My husband actually teaches math at a Catholic school. I have seen how the education freedom accounts have allowed families to send their child to a place where it's best for their child. Each child learns differently, and we need to expand the education freedom account so that every child can reach his or her full potential. So I thank you. So I know you're hearing a lot of talking tonight, and I just want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for coming out, but make no mistake, we need to win. I have the fire in the belly and what it takes to do it. And despite all the false crap pushed by this guy, I'm a former murder prosecutor. I've done it in the courtroom. I'm a former attorney general. I know how to keep this state safe. I know how to enforce our laws. And I'm not going to be bullied by anyone. So I ask for your vote on September, and I mean the Democrats or anyone else. So I ask for your vote on September 10th, and let's win this thing and make sure that we keep New Hampshire the great state that it is. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Kelly. Next up, we're going to have Congressional District 1 candidates. We are cutting the time to speak down to 5 minutes from 10 minutes. You're welcome. First up, we're going to have Joe Kelly Levasseur. Levasseur, I'm sorry.
Joe, 5 minutes.
No, it's all right. I'll do it. I just want to get out.
Sing a little song while we wait.
Joseph Levasseur. It's Joseph Levasseur, but it actually was Levasseur until we became Americanized, I guess. This is my sign. You probably saw it on the highway somewhere, or a road somewhere, and it says Trump or bust. It's not a slogan, it's a fact. Without Trump, everything else falls apart. We've already seen what happened the last 3.5 years. We know it falls apart. The presidency is the most important position, and we need to win it. And everybody needs to support him. And he needs allies, of course. And he needs people like me, or one of us who are running for Congress, to get down to Washington, D.C. to support him. I'm going down there. If I get lucky, I will go down there and be an America First ally. As far as policy goes, it's all America First. It's all about us. It's all about our country. It's all about keeping money here. So a little bit about me. I'm a Manchester born and raised citizen of Manchester. Grew up in the south end of the city. Went through public schools. At the age of 25, I bought my first restaurant. And the guy that sold it to me financed it. And he was running his mouth telling everybody that after he got my down payment, he'd have it back in 6 months. 34.5 years later, I finally retired from the restaurant business. I didn't own a restaurant where I sat around shaking people's hands and sitting at the bar. I was a hands-on operator. I worked in the kitchen. I worked in the bar. I worked everywhere. I did all the work, did all the prep, did everything. I was 25 years old. I started learning about hiring people. I learned about business. And I certainly learned about the cost of utilities. And I did that. I worked hard, and I ended up buying another location, and then I turned it into a third location where I had about 60 employees, and we were very successful. And in that meantime, I knew I didn't want to be in the restaurant business for the rest of my life, so I went back to school, got my bachelor's degree at 31, got my master's at 36, and got my law degree at 39. And I've been practicing law for the last 23 years. I did do that while I was a restaurant owner at the same time. I got dragged into politics in 1999 when the city of Manchester was really in bad shape. We had a vacancy rate of 75% in downtown Manchester, and our mill yard was at 90% vacancy. The only thing that was inhabiting our mill yards were pigeons. Things were really bad. So I was asked by the mayor, Mayor Wazorek at the time, if I could run for office to help get the Civic Center built. I nicely, politely said no. I'm in law school. I had bought a 4-story building, ripped it down to the studs. I was working on renovating a brand new building, making an old mill building into a nice new building. So I had that going in a restaurant. I was in law school, and I said politely no. I said, if you get really desperate, come see me in 2 weeks, and maybe hopefully you'll find somebody. 4 Democrats signed up for the job, and they were all anti-Civic Center. So Mayor Wazorek, an old Polish guy, walked into my restaurant at quarter of five on a Friday night, and said, let's go, you're going down to City Hall. Grabbed me by the headlock, pulled me in. I only lived, literally my restaurant was 100 feet from City Hall. So I went in, I signed up, and I got into politics. Bushy-eyed, and really had no clue what politics was like. I'm not from a political family whatsoever. I had no idea what the hell I was getting myself into. I thought I was going to go in, everyone was going to be nice to each other, we were all going to hug, and we were going to build the Civic Center together. And then I ran into Democrats, and boy, did I learn my life lesson there. Tough, mean, old, really entrenched Democrats. So I got my life lesson with them. I survived 2 years. I decided I didn't want to work as an alderman. If I was going to be at City Hall, I wanted to run it. So I ran for mayor and was not successful. And after that, the state Republican Party called. And I volunteered and I ran against Lou D'Alessandro 3 times for state senate. And on the last one was 2010, where we had a massive wave. And I lost by 135 votes. So I got a good taste of state politics. I've always been very entrenched in politics. I've been in now for 1/4 of a century, since 1999. I do a community access television show. I've done a community access television show for 25 years. Wednesday nights, can't make it tonight, folks, because I'm here instead. My friend Will Inventine, who is a state rep from Manchester, does the show with me. So we do the show, and we do the show for the right reason, which is we need to educate people on what the hell's going on. Because you read the paper, you get one snippet of what really happened at City Hall. You read the paper, you only know 1/4 of the story that goes on at the State House. So we've been educating people for a very long time on what goes on at City Hall in Manchester politics. After running for the 3rd time against D'Alessandro, my restaurant had a fire in 2011. Keep in mind, I'm a pretty hard-nosed, not afraid of Democrats. Call them out, call out government. I have fought against corruption. I've fought with department heads. So I made a lot of enemies in Manchester. I had a fire at my restaurant. I should have been closed for 10 days. They kept me closed for 3 months. And so when I finally got open, and it wasn't easy, they made me spend over $300,000 to upcode a building that didn't need to be upcoded. But they used their power, the government, people inside the planning department, to throttle me and try to close me down. So I ran for office again. This time I didn't run bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I ran pissed. And so I ran for alderman at large, which covers all 12 wards. I got elected off the ticket.
I like the astronauts.
All right.
So you're French?
He's got 6 people in this. Yeah, you got 6 there out there.
Yeah, hey. Did you get the cover?
There's a cover to this. To the left side of the phone. It's just a cover. Sorry.
Hold on. 1 minute.
1 minute. Yeah.
I got more votes than any Democrat and more votes than any Republican.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna have that.
Hey,